I often call myself a color maven, visualization expert, and an author. This is my book. Okay. Okay. All right, so how many people recognize this image? How good are you? Recognize the image? Where was it? Very good. Very good. So, the lovely lady who made this image, Kelsey Taylor, told her I was going to do it. I analyzed using that Adobe Capture app. Up there, I analyzed the color scheme up here. So that's what you can do. If you go to a museum, if you go and you find something around here, you see a picture, some artwork, use your phone, take a picture of it, and capture the colors, save the colors. And you got a new color scheme that you could add to your visualization. Now, lots of artists will tell you the secrets of how they have a stash of colors, but that's one of the most common thing. Artists are very known for stealing. Okay. But they give credit. I mean, I give credit to a lovely person. Just little tricks, some of you. I assume that some of you, how many people in here are civil engineers or engineers? But you never went over the art department. You never saw the tricks that the artists do. That's what they do. They study other artwork. What are you doing when you're studying other artwork? You're learning how to steal. Michelangelo did this for Natalia and created David. All right, so we're going to focus on 4 topics: introduction to color models, wheels, and harmony, key of color vision. I'm going to review some color vision principles. We'll talk about color gamut spaces and systems, and you might like that section because I'll mention a little bit about the iPhone 11, what color spaces, and some research tools. Some of these tools I'm going to cover are probably a little advanced in visualization, but hey, it doesn't matter. All right, so this is the first red, green, blue. That's your phone, right? That's this computer. That's adding with lights. Then we try to print it, and we get cyan, magenta, yellow. Okay, key black. Black is because printers, if they try to match cyan, magenta, and yellow together on a piece of paper, the paper would fall apart, too much ink. So what they did is they put ink, black ink, into the system because there's more printed material than there's color imagery. That's why it's called CMYK. Painters, for centuries, red, yellow, blue, subtract to mix paint. Okay, how many people, if I told you, I've already told this to somebody already, but what is the combination of yellow and blue together? Yellow and blue together makes green.
Depending on
red, yellow, blue color space. But if you're in red, RGB light color space, yellow and blue makes white. You shine a yellow light, which is actually red and green combined together. That makes yellow. I'm telling you, we weren't wired this. Red and green combined together makes yellow in light space. Yellow combined with blue makes white. The reason you don't get this is because when we were 5 years old in kindergarten, our first experiment was to mix the paints together. That's what you're getting. I have a sister who's a kindergarten teacher, so I know this for a fact that that's part of the curriculum. By the way, that's international, all over the world. So one of your first experiments was to mix the blue and the yellow. You remembered it because you're 5 years old and it made green. But when you're in lighting space, that's not true. Yellow and blue make white. So here's the diagram. Yellow, blue, white. Oh, I'm going to fill the room. I get so excited about these things.
There's a bunch of people downstairs who can't find it.
Well, what are we going to do? Send somebody downstairs? Maybe. There's a little flag. Here's how to get to the color tutorial. I know, I couldn't find it either. All right, so in a perfect world, Steve and I have known each other a long time, everybody. He's going to be very familiar in this class. So Dante, you came in here and already knowing me. So, is my cousin in the room? There is a man here named Rhyne, R-H-Y-N-E. I'm not kidding. We had a picture taken yesterday. Okay, so the difference between RGB and CMYK, supposedly in a perfect world, they'd be perfect. So in other words, when you shoot something on your cell phone, you should print it out perfectly and there's no difference. But it's not perfect, right? There are all these differences. You already know that. You know that from your cell phone, a lot of times the pinks don't match up when you're sitting on the printer. Many of you have experienced this, right? You're doing your visualization on your display screen and you try to print it out, it's not the same, it's not perfect. This is even not perfect because I'm talking about a printed space CMYK and I'm displaying it on a monitor. So, but we know it's not perfect. So, ours are challenging colors, how to move between the two spaces, right? Many of you have already dealt with this particular space. So I'm going to talk about the first person who did the color wheel. Isaac Newton was the first person who did the color wheel, and he did color by prisms. He put light through prisms. And what he did was he took the color spectrum and closed it. Now you'll notice, I need a pointer. You will notice that there's a big gap between violet and red. Yes? Think about the color wheel. Anybody know what that should be? What should D be on the color spectrum? People made it. I'll tell you. No, didn't do it. For centuries, this guy named Goethe, in 1810, he challenged Newton in Germany. And in order for Goethe's work to survive, the British took out the challenges to Newton, but one thing in Goethe's book, but one thing Goethe did was he put magenta on the color wheel. So if you look at a color wheel today, it's violet, red, the color in between is magenta. You know what I'm saying? Are you with me? So that's the Goethe. Now, what it is that's not a spectral color. In other words, in Newton's prism experiment, where do you get magenta? You get the magenta inside your eye. If you study green for a long time and you close your eyes, you'll see magenta. Magenta is actually not actually a spectral color. But we can create the color with pigments and paints and things like that. But it's not a spectral lighted color. All right, yesterday I watched and looked at a lot of experiments, and there are a number of people who had orange and blue graphs. They had a white piece of white screen on the background, and they drew these beautiful transportation graphs, and they had orange lines and they had blue lines in these colors, right? And did some of you sit there and watch it and go, oh man, I can't see the spectrum, you're going, oh. That is because Chevreul discovered that. It's called simultaneous contrast. You cannot look at two colors that are directly opposed to each other on the color wheel. That's called complementary color. They directly oppose each other. You can't. Man, it's right.
Is it orange?
Orange. Cyan. They directly oppose each other on the color wheel. And Chevreul discovered this. What happened was he was working in fabric, and what they said is they were weaving two strands together, and the strands looked perfectly right together, separate parts. But when he wove them together, they looked dull. And people didn't understand what was happening. Why was the dyes fading? What was happening? And so Chevreul discovered if you put simultaneous contrast, if you put two colors that are directly opposing each other on the color wheel together, the eyes can't differentiate between them. It's a perception issue. So the way you solve that in visualization, you see there's the color wheel of the two opposing each other. The way you solve that is you make them a little bit duller. You don't make them exactly complementary. In other words, you don't go to the end of the color wheel and make them as bright as possible. You make them a little duller so you can put them inside each other. I can tell by people's looks that they don't understand what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is if you put two colors that are directly opposing each other and you put them up, they'll vibrate. Have you ever had this experience? You put green and magenta up on the screen, and they'll start to vibrate, So how do you put them together in a visualization? What you have to do is add a little bit of gray or black to the color, dull them down a little bit so you can see it. So your eyes don't, it's a matter of the eye. The eyes do it. It's not anything that you can control. It's a perceptual issue that happens to everybody's eye. And that's what Chevreul discovered. He discovered that the fabric wasn't faded. What was happening is the eyes couldn't take the fabric as a tapestry. All right. The first photograph was done by Maxwell in terms, and here's what he did. He was at the British Royal Academy. I want you to imagine, we've got our academy here, right? National Academy of Sciences. Well, the British Royal Academy, there's Maxwell down there. Now remember, they're all used to French Impressionism, they're used to the Renaissance, they're used to painting. Maxwell goes up on a screen, and he puts these little plates through light, and he puts red, green, and blue, and that ribbon is no longer black on the screen, but it's in color. People were just blown away because in the 1800s, 1861, they weren't used to thinking of, they didn't have cell phones, they didn't have televisions, they didn't have this, and they were not thinking red, green, and blue color space. So he's the first one to introduce it. Okay, this is the book that I wish I had written. I'll never get to do it. Rhyne wrote a book called Modern Chromatics in 1879. See, color theory is pretty old. So these Impressionist painters, you know, like Georges Seurat, Monet, got hold of this book, and he described it so well. He summarized additive and subtractive, light versus paint, color models. He diagrammed the color wheel, that pointillism, this is what Chevreul did, his little dots here. He came up with this, he was basically working out Rhyne's modern chromatics color theory on a canvas. That's what he was doing. Now, wouldn't you like to have written a book that caused the Impressionist period? Guess what? Rude wasn't happy about it. He didn't like the artwork that came out. Even though his book inspired it, he wasn't happy about it at all. He said, I don't like the artwork. So I'd like to show this picture. Pointillism. There's a lot of point-based computer graphics. CMYK as a coloring process is by points. This monitor up, this display right here, it's points. It's little, the ray gun's shooting out red, green, and blue, and it's coming really close together. It's making colors that way. Ben-Day dots. If you walk down this street, Avenue 21, if you walk down the street, you'll see at the State Department, you look in the window, you'll see a painting on the back by this guy named Roy Lichtenstein. Roy Lichtenstein mastered what they call Ben-Day dots, which is, he was a modern artist that looks like he did comics. Ben-Day dots is often been used in Marvel comics. The guy from Disney talked about Marvel comics. The illustrator Benjamin Day developed this method. So it's all around you. So I like to analyze other artists, steal from them, learn how they could color. So I've always wondered how Monet was able to have all this abstract art. So now I got to go back and do this again. How was he able to do this? So if you look at what he does on the color wheel, he's very tight. It was what he called a plein air painter. And what I mean by this is, I'm going to show you another way. This is the app I told you could download and get. Some of you came with me. Adobe Capture's a free app you can get from the Apple Store, or you can get from Google Play. Okay, so here we have a Monet painting. And I want to understand how he's doing it. And now Monet was a guy that he didn't go and he didn't sketch, or he didn't take watercolor and then go back to the studio and paint it later. Monet was what they call a plein air painter, which meant that he took his canvas directly out to the scene and he painted directly on the scene, which meant he mixed his paints at real time when he was painting. So, how's he doing it? If you look at color, what he's doing is he has white and cream, and then he's adding a little bit of pink, a little bit of green to create. That's how his creating is different. So there's only slight variance in the differences in the colors. So if you look at yeah, take as many pictures as you want to. So we're down at the poster session, right? And you see something you really like. You take that Adobe Capture app, you go up to it, you click like somebody just clicked here today, and you study it. And there's your color app. And then if you're like me, you say, Kelsey, can I please use your image up here? And you give a scan. This is the thing that's not done very often. Very few people ever. They give credit to the writing, but very few people say, color scheme taken from Color Brewer, color scheme taken from Monet, color scheme taken, most people are taking the color scheme from places. So the Bauhaus, Bauhaus was a school in Germany. It's celebrating 100 years this year. It operated from 1919 to 1933, so it's 100 years. This is most of the color theory, and most of us already studied, was from Paul Klee, Kandinsky, and another guy, Albers. They were all professors, for lack of a better term, of Bauhaus, and they had to rotate teaching what is called the fundamentals class, and part of the fundamentals class was color theory. And these are, this writing, this body of work that creates the color theory that many of us know today. I'm sliding art right by you because I know so many of you in civil engineering never took the art class. You probably took Western civilization, but you never took the art class that told you that. But now you know that. And so now you can talk with your fellow artists, and you can say, you know, I really am interested in Kandinsky, how he attached cool and warm colors. You know, Kandinsky did that, and artists will go, wow, this person knows something. Okay, so Albers came to the United States. I'm from North Carolina, and the first school he taught at was at Black Mountain. And I'm teaching a lot of art here, but anyway, in North Carolina, we love Albers very much. He spent about 25 years nesting squares inside of each other. I call these color studies on top of each other. Now, Albers hasn't been dead that long. So what I did was had my mother stand in front of that picture, those pictures. So if anybody ever said to me, you took a picture of Albers' work, I could say, no, that's a picture of my mother. It's convenient. Now, Albers' student was a guy named Kenneth Noland. You'll see what he did. He did targets or circles. This guy was alive at the time this photo was taken. He's had since passed on, as has my mother. I put my mother right in front of that thing, so if ever I got in any trouble. But anyway, you can see that if you ever have to talk modern art with people, you just say Albers. That's because he did his color studies, and then all this artwork. You can see it all over around here. Albers taught his students about how color, if you put two colors next to each other, they interact and they change. And one that he said, basically, color changes depending on the environment that you're in. There's no space where color isn't interacting. So people modernized Albers' concepts, put his book online, put an app out there, and you can do color experiments on an iPad, only on an iPad, with the Albers app, and learn about color. Now you'll see some weaving in the center of it. That's because Albers' wife was Annie Albers, and Annie Albers was a pioneering textile artist out of the Bauhaus. So there you wonder how they all interrelate to each other. So enough art history, right? So my most recent work is working in virtual reality to take a design that we've done in 2D and see how it looks in 3D and see how the inclusion happens together. All right, now I'm going to give color vision principles, which some of you with a more technical bent are probably going to like. In other words, I'm going to cover color blindness. Trichromatic color theory and vision. Okay, so we have in our eyes 3 cones. Thomas Young postulated this in 1802. He said we have 3 cone cells in our eyes. By the way, birds have 4. The 4th one is used for flight. So Helmholtz classified the cone receptors as long preferring red, short preferring, medium preferring green, short preferring blue. Now I went a little fast. I'm going to everybody keeps coming in. I'm so excited. Uh-oh. I'm going to cause this, whoever's recording this thing, I'm going to make them go crazy for a second. My apologies. So I just want to show this to you, these diagrams. Now, color blindness is not really, it's not an accurate term because no one's really colorblind. What it is, it's the blue cone. You see how that line, the blue cone goes over that range, the green cone and the medium range, and the red cone goes over that range. So you see, it's not like you're colorblind. It just means somebody who has a color deficiency, one of their cones, maybe the red cone or the green cone, doesn't fire right. It means it doesn't see colors that a normal sighted person would see. So there's another theory called opponent color theory. And in 1878, Herring challenged Young and Helmholtz and said, hey, we're not like cell phones. It's not like, you know, the cones don't fire right, we don't see the color. What happens is something else happens. I mean, if color comes into my eyes, there's something else going on in the processing, and it's true. What happens is color goes from your visual systems into your eyes up to the optic nerve. And so he said, look, light. Now think light for a second. You never see red and green light mixed together. You never see it. You never see blue and yellow light mixed together. Now, you guys are going to be thinking paints or black versus gray. This is true because they're not perceived together in terms of light. Red and green together make yellow. So you never see red and green together in light space. You see yellow. Blue and yellow, you never see those two mixed together. You see white. The first group to demonstrate this is called hue cancellation was at Eastman Kodak, Hurwitz and Jameson in 1957. You see, now I've been talking about close to 200 years of color theory, and it wasn't until 1957 in all of this that they demonstrated that if you mix red and green, you're going to get yellow. Blue and yellow, you're going to get white. This is really important as photography and display systems were developing because people were trying to use the red, yellow, blue color model that painters used, and it wasn't working out. So you see, they're thinking, oh, yeah, you know, blue and yellow is green, but it wasn't working out, right? Because the light was white. The answers weren't the same. It wasn't working. So these guys in 1957 demonstrated what was going on. And so they put yellow light with bluish green light to finally get green. It's a very important paper, by the way. So here it is up here, color vision weaknesses. Here I'm doing your red, yellow, blue color wheel as the first pie chart over on your left. I'm showing you if you have a color weakness, that would mean red. In other, protanopy means your red cone's damaged. You can't tell the difference between red and green. Deuteranopy is close. There's a little different, but you also can't tell red and green. This one, tritanopy, is a little more, becoming a little more, it's where the blue cone gets a little goofed up. And some of this can be done with radiation. So some people who have cancer treatment, sometimes they can develop tritanopy. So those are the color blindness. Protanopy, deuteranopy, tritanopy. So in the visualization field, used to be that when they made color displays in the 1970s, they had large workstations, and by default, they had a color map that was the rainbow. They just took the Newtonian prism colors, they put them right across, and that was a color map. It was found out that if you're doing visualization and then you put a scale of 1 to 10 across here, the distances are not uniform between the hues. So people began to write on this extensively and say, don't use the rainbow color map because your distances aren't proportionally with regards, your distances mathematically aren't proportional with regards to the hues. So that's what the rainbow color map, it's a big issue in visualization, so it goes on today. So, there was a lovely lady presented yesterday. She said she used Matplotlib, and I was telling her Vertis is the color map that has been developed by Matplotlib. They've gotten rid of the rainbow color map. They preferred the default color map to use. So it's going from a dark blue, blue-purple to a yellow. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. I posted my slides on my YouTube site, so you can get this. So if you guys want to go and read all this, you can. This is not, just take a picture. This is not kind of stuff you're probably into, but this is the visualization community gets really big into this. I mean, seriously, there's a color section at IEEE, which is in Vancouver, like 2 weeks ago on this. So human color perception is imperfect. So here's my idea, here's the idea. Yellow light, green and red combined make yellow light. So you can say, oh, but it's true. It's true, not lying. So the first person that began to really study this heavily that we know of was a guy named Munsell. And he was trying to develop a color space in around the late 1890s, early 1900s. He wanted to have a color sphere, like a beach ball. And he wanted to be able to slice it and say it would be 3D. So think of the orange, but it's a beach ball, and then you slice it and you didn't color. I thought you'd love it.
No, just had a phone call. I would never, I would
But I was
never.
taking it personally.
I would
All right, so what happened was, Marcel discovered that, guess what? He did these experiments on people in perception, and he found out that we see a wider range of red, orange hues than we do blue, green hues. And I'm saying this to you because if you make color maps, I saw yesterday somebody had a red-orange color map in some visualization. And our eyes can detect that at a wider range than we can blue-green hues. And that's what the actual model of Munsell color space. Now, Munsell did not define a shape. He decided just to call it a tree. He didn't mathematically calculate a shape of our perceptual, I don't know what you call it, pairs, I don't know, squash something. He actually came up with a Munsell tree. He opted out of trying to come up with a 3D space. So I'm going to color the Munsell system. Now, all of these things that are built up, there are all these other color models in terms of perceptual uniformity of color spaces, lab and love. I want to cover that hue saturation value because you're going to deal with artists and other visualization people. Maybe you'll have to do some Pantone. Anybody ever heard of Pantone before? Okay. And how many people are at universities? You know what your Pantone colors are? I don't know what university you're at.
I'm not sure where our Pantone colors are.
What university are you at?
UT Austin.
Oh, I assure you, you have an orange,
Dark, yeah,
a burnt orange color. I assure you, the graphics department knows, and I will also assure you the athletic department knows. Because they have to make t-shirts, they have to make socks, and they have to make that, and they have to know that Pantone color. And they also have to know.
And people get it wrong too. You'll go into like a store and there's like so many different oranges.
Right, and they didn't get it right, right. They didn't know it. So what they should have done is called your design department at the Pantone.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can find it online.
And it can be found online.
Get it for you.
But see, sometimes though, you have to call, you know, if you're making socks, it might not be the same thing as if you're making a brochure. You know? So, all right, so the Munsell color system. He was trying to do XYZ, hue, value, chroma, and he was doing, hue is out at the edge of the center of the circle, so I need to point out here. Then values down along this way, that vertical axis, not what we think of as the y-axis, dark to light, and then he's got chroma coming out from the 0 to 12 across in here. I'm going to show you. So his whole idea was he figured that all these colors would be like have a range of 12, and it'd be a nice little sphere, and everything would be really beautiful. I'm just showing you the model real fast. By the way, Munsell, I was at this Munsell 100-year symposium. You really want to get into that too, you know. So, all right, so here it is. It's 5, it colors at level 5. It's pretty much normal. About everybody can see all this particular range of color if you're normal, if you don't have a color deficiency. But you get into other levels, like you start getting to 6, 18. So here's a blue-green. It's dying at 6. Red-orange is going strong at 18. So that's the range of crushing. That's how they get the pear shape. And Munsell also believed he was not, 1920s, so he's not going to be into digital media, right? So he's going to be into color chips. So if you deal with a Munsell group of people, they believe that you have color chips. Has anybody ever done like geotechnical? By the way, I have an engineering background. I have a couple of civil engineering degrees. It drives people in computer science crazy. But anyway, I studied geotechnical engineering, and you know, with geologists, and you had to go out and measure soil samples. The Munsell color system is used that heavily. You take the Munsell chips and you go out and you take the Munsell colors and you measure your soil samples. Because one of the ladies who's a pioneer, Dorothy Nickerson, only a color geek would tell you this. Dorothy Nickerson worked for the Department of Agriculture, And that was the Munsell color system that you incorporated into mapping soil samples. Just so you know. In the United States, Europe may see it differently. Okay, so X-Rite bought the Munsell company, and you can get this free app if you ever want to look at Munsell colors. And you guys might have a call to do that, because somebody's talking about bridges. You guys might have a call for somebody that wants you to maybe go into Munsell color system rather than using some of the color systems that are, actually could have a call for that. So, color gamut. This is a way of trying to see color space in the XYZ space, put it up. 2D diagram. So this is called the horseshoe. All of the colors are in this little horseshoe here, and this little triangle that sits in there, that's a typical bone in red, green, blue color space. That's a typical spectrum. Now, there's more to this story. So sRGB was developed by Microsoft and Hewlett-Packard in the late 1990s to kind of model this space. So sRGB is the default on most monitors, display systems, and on most mobile devices. I did a 2020 math paper, so that would be sort of like looking at all the math papers and trying to get a diagram. But you'll see the problem that we have is you see that little triangle of RGB space, some of that matte paper doesn't cover them there. So what Adobe did with Photoshop was it tried to encompass everything, so it made a triangle to try to include matte paper and sRGB together, so that what you saw in Photoshop that changes up being printed out as well was better. But then digital cameras, when they came along, Kodak had Pro Photo RGB. Now what's interesting about this is that means that you can take with your digital camera in raw RGB modes. Have some of you ever had a digital camera where you took, it's a huge file, raw RGB? You can take some colors that your eye can't see. The camera will tell you it's in there, but your eye can't see that particular color, because you'll see that triangle is outside the horseshoe space. Some photographers get really sticky, and they only want to say in Pro Photo RGB. Depends on what you want to do. This guy, Jeff Shui, his work, I would follow his work if you want to see if you're into digital cameras. All right, so it turns out that in 1931, the first color space horseshoe that I was talking about, first one was done by Wright and Gill in the 1920s, 1931, CIU 1931. It's like any other standard. Some of you guys, I remember in my structure, I also have a degree in structures. And I remember all these structure standards. You know, these people, they all got to come together to make the standard, right? It just can't be one or two people or two or three people in the lab. So, you know, the work was done in the 1920s, but it wasn't until 1931 they made it a standard. So anyway, now if you look at this, it's heavy on the green side, right? People began to say, there's something wrong here. It's too heavy on the green side. So I just want to show you how they do all these color experiments. What they do is they take somebody who's tested to not have a color blindness, but it's pretty good eyeballs. They put them up there, and they would not allow me because I have a thing called color memory, which means I can remember colors that I've seen before, and I could probably skew the results. But they want a normal-sighted person. They can pretty much, they put a little knobs down, and you use the red, green, and blue knob, and you match that yellow as best as you can. And they take the data, and these are psychology experiments, and that's how they create all this data. Just, I wanted to tell you this, just so if you're holding on to data like it's dear to your heart, remember it's all subjective, right? Because there's a bunch of 15 people that qualify for this experiment in a psychology department, and then they wrote a bunch of papers on it, and they presented it. People said, oh yeah, they're right. Could be wrong, you know, could be. Maybe they had actually bird cones there. But anyway, so I cover it in my blog. So these are these equations for a chromaticity diagram. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because you guys, I'm assuming, are probably not going to be color geeks after you leave this, but I just want to give you some terminology. The spectral locus is the edge of the horseshoe of that diagram. All colors that are pure monochromatic light are along that diagram. All these diagrams have a white point, and all the pastel colors are at the center of that white point. somebody gets their spectral diagram, there's no white point, they are not accurate. Two colors along, so look at the line of purples, two colors between each other, that's how you can mix the colors. So if I have purple on the one and red on the other, and I want to get magenta, I just go along the spectral line. That's called the line of purples I was using. Okay, so in today's world, you have to love it. In 1976, LUV, they came along for a uniform chromaticity diagram, not so heavy on the green, notice. Now this one, in pure CIE lab, is supposed to be component colors only by equations. You're not supposed to have a chromaticity diagram, but it doesn't mean some people haven't gotten wild and created some calculations and made a chromaticity diagram. Somebody get up and take a picture, because this room is packed. And I didn't think I'd pack the room. Okay, so we're talking about monitors and display spaces. And when I was the director of visualization at North Carolina State University, I had this big display row. You can talk to Michael Pack about it. It was had like about 16 projectors altogether. And we had to calibrate those projectors so they all looked good together. And we use CIE LCH color space. I cover this when I'm at computer graphics conferences. It's supposed to be the most accurate color spaces for when you're doing displays. I'm going to assume that you guys, how many people have a big display unit or some wall or something? Okay, so I can ask them whether they calibrated on LCD. They took my class, they told you. They're supposed to be using it. So, just so you know, so CIE XY. Now, some people will want to display their color tool in CIE XY Z color space. Some of them will use UV. You're supposed to be using UV. But sometimes things carry over. Okay. Now, if you really want to get into it, you get into the 2000s, and they have to get color appear. In other words, what appears on your screen should appear on your thing together, and the color people wrote all this color appearance things in their books you can take on it. Anybody here from Rochester Institute of Technology? Okay, they're experts. You go, you talk to them, Mark Fairchild, and they do color appearance models. I'm not going to spend a lot of time doing this. There's a lot of geeky stuff you can do. So why do you care? You care because Apple and Samsung are fighting it out. And I mean it, they are fighting it. I'm going to take a picture. I'm going to take a picture. I'm sorry, everybody. But smile for the camera. All right. I'm sorry. You know, when I fill an audience, because I don't know you guys that well. We don't know each other. All right. So Apple has, you know, you see Tim Cook, and then it's probably one of his vice presidents, and they get up and they pace back and forth, and they talk about the latest iPhone. And they say that they have wide gamut color space, and they talk it really fast. And they tell you that they're going to do streaming, and they use a protocol called DCI-P3. It's what is used. Now, the important thing you want to understand is DCI-P3, the people who develop that care nothing about color, care nothing about visualization. It's just a standard that they use for displays. I sent them a display device. Now, artists in the world got mad because it was around iPhone 7 that Apple made this decision to do this. They said, what are you doing? Because it doesn't match Adobe RGB and the colors won't match up. And they did these diagrams. This is from, they said, look, Adobe RGB, look at that little yellow diagram. You see, and it's not going to DCI-P3. And Apple said, we don't care. We don't care because we're going to stream. And they do, right? What were they headed for? They were headed for their own TV, right? So, I'm not ragging Apple, I'm just telling you right now, if you're thinking of doing your best visualization on the phone, you better be thinking about stream DCI-P3, which is not going to be the best color standard. But that's okay. So, developed by Digital Cinema Initiative, you took my class, P3 color gamut, designed for projectors, not intended for consumers to create content in. I believe we are all consumers, are we not? Visualization people are consumers. So, digital content creators, what do? You're making a movie. You're Hollywood, Disney, the guy, talk to his people that make those movies. They create an Adobe RGB color space, then they put an emulator DCP3 standard. In others, they create it and they hope it's gonna look good on the phone, especially when Apple TV hosts. Okay. My friend Raymond Soniero, he does all these calculations and everything, and this is his work. So, you care because iPhone Pro color management system has 2 display modes. It has a DCI-P3 precision color display, and then it has a base sRGB color display. Now, the iPhone 11 Pro is organic light emitting diodes. It's an OLED display device. Anybody got an iPhone 10, 4? Okay, but so you decided that you weren't really you wanted a cheaper phone, right? Somebody says, I want to save money, I want the cheaper phone.
Yes.
What you got was a liquid crystal display, so you got an LCD. Apple's sneaking it right by you, right? So that's the difference. They don't come out there and say it. They tell you like some kind of color gizmo, or they give you some marketing words. But technically, the more expensive phone, which would be the iPhone Pro, 11 Pro, is an OLED display device. The iPhone 11 is an LCD display technology. So that's why you care. It's all based on all this color theory, but they don't quite describe it that way. So then we have Samsung. I don't know if anybody has Samsung. Oh, okay. Well, you have more control of your color than you would if you had my iPhone. You have more control. They have a native wide color gamut mode. They've always used OLED displays. They never, ever didn't have it. They have sRGB. They have a natural display mode. They do the DCP3 as well, but you can also go into Adobe RGB mode. You have to read the manual or type it, figure it out, online, but you can actually have that kind of control. So more people might create movies on Samsung, but probably not. But anyway, these are the 2 things compared to each other.
So what's the practical impact of that? Because are you saying that
Practical impact of that, impact of
watch
it is,
TV on our iPad, does that mean we're getting screwed up colors?
it means that it's, yes. It means the colors are tend to be more in the red zone than they would normally be if you weren't using DC.
And does that match what you would see on the TV?
Thank you.
So the TV is screwed up too?
Well, the TV wouldn't necessarily be screwed up, but what's going to happen is all the streaming media content that's going to come to you is going to be. But no, the TV that you watch today, unless you're doing Apple TV, see, I got to qualify. But if you're using something that's using that DC standard, it's going to be inactive. But it's not any different than music, right? MP3s, right? We all know MP3s. That's not the best audio, folks. Go talk to a musician. They'll tell you that the MP3 is a standard reduced audio in terms of if you're a musician. Musicians know it. So it's no different. They're just doing the same thing.
I have a big tablet, and the killer use case is to watch TV on the tablet.
Yeah, that's right. And Apple decided that that's gonna be the color model for you to watch thing. And people are gonna say after a while, the skies aren't as blue. I go out and I look and the skies aren't, people are going to notice things like that. It's going to happen. But now people don't have much experience with streaming content to really talk about stuff like that. You just wait, it'll happen. So this is how, by the way, if you got Steve's, as you say, you have a tablet, if you wanted to get to calibrate your displays, you can use some kind of a display, color monkey display device from X-Ray if you want it. There are other ones that make them. Data color makes them. And no 2 display devices are the same. So in computer graphics, back in the 70s, they didn't like what was going on with CIEXYZ and stuff like that. So they wrote papers, I presented to the graphic community. They came up with huge saturation in value. and hue, saturation, and lightness. Just like I told you, artists steal, people in computer graphics do the same thing. It was common, Steve can correct me, it's true. A lot of the great founders in computer graphics, they were trying to come up with their PhD topics, and they would go and find scientific effort that had never been digitized before. They'd find an equation, and then they would make that their thesis, right? So it was a common thing to sort of go find something that had never been put into the digital world before and try to develop your equations to make it happen. So HSV and HSL came from that generation. And they were about color pickers. So they've got these big display stations, and you got to pick your colors. So here's the problem. If you have red, green, and blue color space, like I told you guys, if you're on a display device, it could be negative 41R, negative 31G, plus 21B to get a color spectrum that's a little bit like that, to change your color. So logically, people went, I don't know how to do that, right? I mean, it would change all the time. So what they did was they came up with these color spaces, but more uniform. They had hue, saturation, and value. Alvy Ray Smith developed this color gamut transform pairs with the paper he wrote. And he developed hue, saturation. This is what most color pickers use, hue, saturation, and value for when you pick a color on your monitor. Talking about getting your background color right for your web page or something like that. This is what the color model that you're using. By the way, Alvy Ray Smith is a founder of Pixar. Other trivia. In the same year, at the same conference, a guy named Tom Greenberg and George Jablow, came up with hue, saturation, and lightness. So this was two codes on top of each other. Now, why do you care? Because if you're doing web page, anybody do web page colors? Design web, or you got people that know do web page colors, right? You want to get more color capability. If you use a hue, saturation, lightness color model, turns out the Web 3D standard allows you to know, if you know the hue, saturation, lightness of a particular color you want, you can specify HSL in your web page and get a much more brighter color, greater color variance. I'm showing you this. So, you're doing some hex triplets. You're making a web page. So, the way it works is a 6-digit, 3-byte hexadecimal number. Using HTML, CSS, or SVG are the way you make a web page. Can I do a little chart here? How you do your colors. Or, like I said, you know the little secret sauce. And you know that if you know the HSL value in your web page, you can get a color that's different than anybody else's because you knew the HSL value to put it. All right, so now I'm going to cover Pantone. How many people have ever cut out some cardboard and painted on it? Anybody ever done it? Or cut out some paper and painted? Or maybe drawn on construction paper. Come on, you did it. So this guy was with the Pantone company. That's what he did. That's what Pantone took pieces of cardboard and painted, otherwise known as coated paper, painted a color, and then sent these pieces of cardboard to printers all over the world and said, match according to our cardboard colors. This guy's looking at me like that. I'm telling you, they did it in the 1950s. Why? All right, so in the 1960s, let's try that. The example I often use is Yellow Submarine. So you're the Beatles, and you created this song, We All Live in a Yellow Submarine, and you used a particular color for that Yellow Submarine. And you're in the United Kingdom, right? But you're going to give a concert in Los Angeles, and they have to make posters in Los Angeles that say yellow. They have to, because the whole thing is based on Yellow Submarine, and they got to have the same yellow. You can't just call up on the phone and say, I got this yellow submarine. Well, they're going to look at yellow. So is it yellow with a little bit of green in it? Is it yellow with a little bit of orange in it? What kind of yellow do you mean, right? I mean, So the yellows won't match, right? If I say yellow to you, and I've always talked about yellow, we can all come up with different colors, right? So Pantone said, look, my ink says, you know, here's your Pantone management system value, and my ink for this yellow is so forth, and you give that value, which is why I'm telling you that the people in this is the same problem that you're talking about your athletes in Texas,
Yeah,
right? They know their Pantone value.
159.
159. See, now he knows his Pantone value, 159. So he wants that color. You gotta get that color here. You gotta print that color. You got some posters. You gotta print it here. You call up the printer and you say, PMS 159. That's the color I need it to be. That's how you do it. And that's all Pantone is. So it has no science, but it's very important. So somehow the guy was good with Pantone. He got all these people to take all their inks. Then over time, they bought all these inks from Pantone and they printed with them. And so over time, they developed this color system. And that's called, there's an app for it called Pantone Studio. Thank you for doing your homework and checking that out. But I'm serious. You talk to somebody like LeBron James and people like that, they know that Pantone color that they work for. I mean, you know, when they go from one to the other, because they have to have suits, right? They have tailors and they have all these people. They have to call out that PMS value and make sure the dye is that color. I'm serious, but it's amazing how many professional athletes know the colors, the Pantone colors for what they have to have. They have to have ties, they have to have all that kind of stuff. If you're a woman, you know, you have to have the Pantone. Or, like if you're a professor at a university, say you're the chancellor, you got to have a wardrobe, you know? Mary Ann Fox, when she moved from NC State University to University of California at San Diego, she had to change her wardrobe. She had to know her Pantone color. She did, she contacted me. How to meet the chancellor, right? Okay, so the Pantone Studio app. These are the colors. You can take this Pantone Studio app. This is some molecular visualization I did with the University of Utah. And you can combine, you can get your Pantone values if you need to know. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about how you build color maps. Yesterday, I saw a lot of monochromatic color maps. In other words, people were taking a single color. Many of you maybe have done it on your geographic visualizations. You've taken a single blue color and you changed the tone, the colors across it, kind of added a little bit. If you have a little bit of black, you get a shade. Add a little bit of gray, you get a tone. Add a lot of white, you get a tint. And you start out with yellow. So I'm doing the key of yellow. You will see a lot of visualizations on that. I saw a lot of them yesterday. Some of them were in blue. I think they were the key of blue. Some of them were kind of a deep purple, whereas your in other words, your color transitions from a light color, a light white tint, a light blue, all the way to a dark blue on your color scale. So there are three fundamental types of color harmony. One of them is complementary, two colors opposite each other. Now look at how I've got that. Now I have a 3D shade in there, but notice that I don't have a pure yellow and a pure blue. And I am not putting that on a white background. I've got it on a gray background. Your eye can look at that. Now I can make your eyes vibrate if I just put it on a white background that has a really strong blue and a strong yellow. So that's a little tip you can say that you learned from your eyes can tolerate that. Some people yesterday noticed had the eyes had a lot of vibration going on. Analogous is probably some of the more common schemes for colors that are pleasing to look at together, and that is where you take three colors. Here yellow's at the center. You take orange and you take lime green. You put them together in a visualization. Sometimes you'll see some of that together. I'll show you an example a little bit later. So that's called an analogous color map. I have an analogous color map on. Purple, colors adjacent to each other. Okay, so these are some advanced ones, split complementary. Dye is two colors. Take two colors together, one space from each other. This is an unusual color. It actually looks very Asian. You look at it. Color wheel. All right, so This is triad, and this is tetrad, 4 colors. So, color harmony. Here's how we used it at University of Utah. We have some fluid flow that we're looking at, and we want 3 different strands. And I built a triad color map for it, so that the colors would stand out as they flow down. There was an animation. So I did a lot of studying with Munsell, and you can find I'm written in the Munsell blog. Remember I told you 100 years in 2018, so I did a lot of color harmony studies on Munsell. Just so you believe me, that's all. Okay. So I told you about stealing. ColorLover's website is one that people who are like artists, what you do is like a little community where you go up and you share your color map, you give each other credit, and you can go. So you're really desperate for a unique visualization, go to ColorLovers, see if you can find a color map you like. It'll work. You know, you can't go out with your iPhone, you can't find some good pictures out in the real world, it's a cloudy day or something. Go to ColorLovers. This is an artistic approach. Artists for a long time, what they do is they map off the color wheel, they don't look at all the colors, they map off a section of it. They can create a visualization. This is another way to do it. So here I'm mapping off a section of the color wheel. I'm only using that for the visualization. Another little technique. So now, how many people have ever used ColorBrewer? Yeah. Thanks for not lying. Because there are some people yesterday, I looked it up, they were ColorBrewer. They had used ColorBrewer, and I knew it, but they didn't give Cynthia Brewer credit. So Cynthia Brewer and Mark Harlow at Pennsylvania State University developed ColorBrewer from a grant from the National Science Foundation. And they did it in the early 2000s. Be careful, because she is the TSRI. They publish her books. So, the other thing, if you're in the visualization community, how many people have ever used Tableau? Okay, Maureen Stone modeled her default color maps for Tableau. She's head of research at Tableau right now. She modeled her color map. She's a color expert off of ColorBrewer. And if you are taking a visualization class, you may have taken Tamara Musner's book, Visual Analysis and Design. It is a textbook used quite heavily. She has to sign her book a lot at IEEE. So anyway, it's very heavily used if you haven't used it. A lot. But so, sequential color scheme. That's the one I was talking about, where you're going from like a light blue to a dark blue. She also does it, I'm going to do this with an arrow. She also does, watch the arrow on the scoop. She also, so you can use this is red one, this is blue. She used a single hue across here and multi-hue, different colors. So this would be what is called analogous right in here. This would be monochromatic if you want to talk color with artists. Then she has a diverging color scheme. Maybe some of you have seen that. This is where the map values change. And yesterday somebody showed something that looked like a rainbow. Color map from the University of Maryland was the guy who did it. I told him that maybe he might want to look at these, what she calls categorical colors, the color range. If you ever have to put a whole bunch of colors together, but there's no meaning with regards to the progressing like over time or the values changing, the data changing, this is a good tool to use. Cynthia Brewer is awesome, and you'll find that her whole PhD work was based on what became ColorBrewer. So you can't go wrong using it if that's the easy way you'd like to do it. Now, the first National Geographic that ever came out covered a storm. I love to cover this, and I analyzed it. It's called The Great Storm between March 11 to 14 of 1888. The snow was 20 to 60 inches. That's a lot of snow up and down from the Chesapeake to New England. And geographers did this first visualization for National Geographic, and I wanted to analyze it. Sure enough, it is a perfect, what I'd call a complementary color. map right in here, complementary colors right in there. Now, Cynthia Brewer has an example that's close to this, but you might not want to make it white across in here, you might want to make it cream. But this happened to default to cream because this is actually, this visualization right here is a low value of the red spectrum. Okay, so here we are, in my years at NC State. I have a student, he'll never forget me, he came up to New York and had to go to the Modern Museum of Art and see Kandinsky's because I told him about Kandinsky and color maps. Poor guy, here he was, just trying to be an engineer, software engineer, and he had to learn all his color stuff because of who his teacher was. But anyway, we did this study on household broadband availability for the 100 counties in the state of North Carolina. We used this color brewer map, but notice how just because you pick this map, it looks a lot different over here. So it'd only be a color geek like me that would sit there and know those colors that might be able to tell that you use color brewer. Some of them are easier to figure out. This is another way to do it. You do it. Two variables. A lot of people say, oh, I can't do it because color brewer only has 3. Just get rid of the white middle variable. Don't work. So here's one I did a long time ago on animations. So we're in the lab, we use this one. Now, here's a trick. The trick on it is, this is an animation. This is not a GIS. This is not a map. This thing is I'm gonna make the colors. So this is a perfect storm. This is based on the Hurricane Katrina data, where our scientists are developing a computational model. My colleague, Steve Shaw, and I did this together. Basically, what I'm trying to do in this animation is I'm seeing color, the purple color, color brewer, but actually my software is only calling for, I'm only calling magenta and blue. So I'm going to ask the data to make that color. So I'm going to play the movie so you can see what I'm talking about. What kind of time is I get? 9:30 or something after that. Tell me where I am. Somebody look at your cell phone. Oh, 9:35. I'm doing good. All right, so I'm going to drive this thing crazy. I want to show you the movie. I cut the audio off. You have to hear my lovely voice. Okay, so I've only got blue and I've got magenta, and I'm going to force us to see purple by the data set. I see, I've got blue and magenta. Isn't that purple? That's what you call color mixing going on with the data. Now, I've got to have my orange lay in there because meteorologists can't function if they can't see the wind vectors to know the direction of the wind. I'm sure some of you guys have this in your transportation. You probably can't do a lot of transportation visualization without the roads. I mean, you could, in theory, get rid of the roads. If you don't have the roads, you're probably might not make your transportation visualization very comfortable. Same thing with people doing meteorology. You got to see what the direction, where the wind really is. That hurricane circle right there, that little donut thing's not telling them where the wind is. So basically, you've got a visual cue of your wind vector, and I'm making it so that it stays, you can see that those wind vectors no matter what happens with regards to So what I'm trying to say is you want to think, now most people in transportation you use red road, but you might try a different color, you might want to try a different convention. I'm not going to go there because you would have to get your community to accept that. That's the big let's go back here. So I'm going to walk you through some advanced tools. I'm going to go off the chart for a second. I'm going to cover some things that you would go, how many people have ever been to an IEEE visualization conference or ever looked at the conference? Steve, Alan, Fraser. You've been to one? Which VIZ did you go to? All right, so maybe you saw some of these tools introduced. At this conference, a lot of people present their latest visualization work. If you knew Steve Ike in those days, he was like program committee person and everything. I'm complimenting Steve. So there's another conference called SIGGRAPH, and SIGGRAPH and IEEE are very much into, well, I guess you'd call it learning how to, deep learning. People heard of deep learning. I've heard artificial intelligence here, heard machine learning. Deep learning is a big thing where you get this computer and you try to teach it. So this thing is taking black and white photographs. What these guys did for their PhD research at Berkeley is they took Dorothea Lange, you know, she was a great photographer, right? She did Depression era photographs, black and white. Just think of people like Ansel Adams or whatever, and they never touched color. They never decided to colorize anything, right? Period of that. So they decided to see whether their tool could colorize, and whether it would propose what a color version of their black and white. I did this I took my original photo as around Halloween time or whatever, and then I turned it into a black and white, and I ran it through this particular tool and said, okay, colorize it. It comes close, right? It's not quite the same. So what I'm trying to say to you is, just because you take a black and white photograph and you colorize it, you're coming close, but it might not be exactly what it was like when Dorothea Lange shot. And nobody knows, right? Because she did it in the Depression era. Here's another one. It's black and white. But you can kind of teach the thing to learn how to colorize. There's a whole lot of work going on using deep learning where you try to teach it, because if you have large data sets, which you guys could have in transportation, and you don't want to by hand go through your data set, you would like to use some machine learning and be able to do some deep learning teaching, see if they could come up with. But you have to watch it in terms of colorization. I'll give you the papers. Now this is a paper that came in. I believe the guy, it was in Baltimore. So what was Baltimore? 2016, 2017, I may have the dates wrong. He presented a categorical kind of for his PhD categorical tool. This is an automated, you select some colors and it comes up with an automated map. So this automatically generated this particular color map that was perceptually correct. So you might want to, this tool is still online, you might want to see if it gives you some options here. This is a web-based tool for generating color palettes. Now this one, there's this field, most of the stuff you guys do here in information is what they call information visualization. There's a field that has a much longer history to it named scientific visualization, which was done out of Department of Energy Labs. How am I doing, Steve? I'm getting in big trouble. Department of Energy Labs, where they look at 3D like isosurfaces and volume, and they have a tool that out of Los Alamos that is kind of crazy looking, that they look at fluid flow. So this is like a 3D globe. It's a visualization tool, sunlight. So I use it. Sometimes I'll take Albers and run it through and get some kind of interesting visualizations. I'm messing with the knobs and creating different visualizations. If you want to kind of get some, it's kind of sort of on the edge, the wild stuff. There's this other tool that's really cool called VIZ Palette. I like it a lot. It's done by some people that are kind of connected with YouTube and that kind of world. And they just have this, select a bunch of colors, and this gives you some information visualization. You probably can recognize these. I don't know if people know right in here, but that middle one is what they call a tree map. And it was developed by a guy named Ben Schneiderman at the University of Maryland. It's often used. I didn't see a lot of examples of that yesterday, but it's another way of visualizing data. But this one might give you some ideas about how your data might look. So if you can take in COLORBREWER palettes, and do that. These are all the COLORBREWER palettes right down here. Isn't that cool? Every single COLORBREWER palette right here. Visualize it. Okay. I can run through another example, but you know, I'm not gonna do it. Because I've given you enough. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stop here. I'm gonna go to my book. So I wrote this book. So I need you guys, because Michael Pack is a cool guy, and he got 2 copies. So you guys gotta ask me some cool questions. I'll give somebody a copy of it. I got schemes on this. So, anyway. And then if you don't get the book, if you don't get the copy. Okay. So, it'll back up here. That's where you can get the book. CRC Press. It'll take you longer. You can go out to Amazon, be an Amazon Prime member. They'll ship it to you, but CRC Press, that's the publisher. Be online too. I should probably promote CRC Press. So I just want to cover. I've got my stuff online. Here's your Adobe Capture app. I told you, here's a Pantone Studio. If you want the complete Pantone library, of course, they want you to pay $7.99 every single month. You guys know, you guys have libraries for your various activities, and you know you have to pay for it. No different. But you can get a basic one. This is the grandmother of color analysis tools from Adobe, called Adobe Color. It's online. I go and find it. Here's another guy playing his color scheme designer. Now, the guy with color scheme designer is really good for web pages. What's interesting is what he did is he designed it in for red, yellow, blue color space, even though you're seeing an RGB color space. Interesting guy. I give you Color Brewer. All right, here's the one you want for your color blindness simulators. You want COLORBREWER'S. So what you're going to do is you're going to take an image of your visualization, you're going to run it through COLORBREWER'S, and you're going to see what it looks like to somebody. Palladium will do it. You want to see what it looks like for somebody who has a color deficiency. COLORBREWER'S is what you want to use to do that. Then I give you some other books. Now, I know this is a strong GIS community. I can feel it from the examples. If you really want to follow Cynthia Brewer's work, she's a Designing Better Maps, a guide to GIS users. It's beyond color. She is department head, Pennsylvania State of Geography Department. And if you're into it, there's a guy named GANT, G-A-N-A-T-T. Anybody know? People, some federal government people know about who this guy is? She's shaking your head. You know who GANT is?
I read some.
Speak louder.
I read some material about it.
What about it? Don't be afraid, I'll talk. Right? He pioneered a lot in his maps. You can check him. You can Google him. But to get the GANT award is a big deal. Federal government. He was one of the leaders in geography. There was a time when geography was king, right? Geography. He's one of those people. Somebody's already Googling. If you want the color of Pixar, this lady Tia did a beautiful job of talking about all the colors of Pixar uses in its color palette to everyone. So, the big secret is, long ago I was trained as a civil engineer. So my professors and colleagues endured my passion for color, and I thank them. All right, so ask me some questions, please. No questions? Because how am I going to get rid of these books?
So a lot of this is about readability,
But
what about when you're trying to evoke certain emotions or present, like where?
yeah, that'd be like Kandinsky, spirituality of color. So there's cool colors, and there's hot colors. You can, and definitely people like Pixar definitely knows combines colors together. Like the movie Coco, they went and they did field studies down in Mexico, and they looked at what it would be like to do a complete movie underground, because if you look with no, skylight, all dark light, so they base their color scheme on that. So if you look at, so that's why when I was talking about streaming media, what they're doing is they're basing it on, and I can show you these apps, they're basing on, looking at the screen is different than looking outside at the light, is colors that way. So it's going to be a darker color.
So we're presenting data that we want to share with the public as transportation DOTs. Do you want to be pleasing, or do you want to, or what kind of emotion do you want from them, or, I mean,
That's your job, right?
Okay.
Your job, tell me, in other words,
What's
I want
better?
my community to love what I'm doing, analogous color mix. Put the colors that are all in next to each other on the color wheel.
that makes sense.
Put kind of blues and greens and everything next to it. If you want them to see something, then put a red or an orange up there, fight that blue, they'll get it.
Not to manipulate, but.
Hey, Hollywood does it all the time.
When you were doing the Albers images in virtual reality, was there anything that stood out? Was there anything that was particularly interesting about putting those
So I
color
didn't start
experiments
to
in
do
3D?
this, thank you, I didn't start to do this work until September.
Okay.
I went up to Virginia Tech. Yeah, one of the things I was really surprised at was how much yellow we got from doing our orange study, and how much when I was, because he took those pictures, is what I was seeing in my glasses, and how much yellow we got. I was just pleasantly surprised. We had some reds, and we kind of had orange, and somehow there was a lot of yellow that came out of there. I didn't.
Okay, do you think that was a result of the display from the HMD, or was that just something that kind of
I think it was how we were overlaying some things together and the HMD.
Okay.
I have read before that there are some interesting things about yellow in a virtual reality space, but I don't know enough about virtual reality to answer that question. Somebody raise their hand back there. Yes, ma'am.
When you're using colors differently, different elements like on an average chart, is there any rule about what too many different colors in some piece brain to really get any value?
Sure, like if you use Cynthia Brewer's categorical colors, and there, I mean, she'll recommend like 10, and some people will say go down to 12, 13, 14, then it gets really dicey because the colors don't differ that much. You stay up around 5 and 6, you're okay, but you start getting down at 10 and everything, people, I mean, the colors aren't that different. You can kind of see it in some people's work that they use in display, and you can't, they've got like a blue and then a blue purple and then a purple, and you can't tell. I mean, they're not enough. So that's what happens when you get up, if it's something like 12 and stuff like that, you stay around 5, you're kind of okay. Yeah?
So you put up an image of one of the color group palettes, and then somebody used it, and you said it looks kind of different. Is there a certain way to make sure that if you change the colors a bit, they're all still kind of
Okay, when I said it looked different, what I meant was that just because I looked at the Color Brewer palette, I'm going to try to find that example of that. My wonderful student, so proud of him, that he went to see Kandinsky. Imagine getting a text.
I think it was 70.
70, thank you for catching it. Imagine getting a text. I want to see Kandinsky because of you. All right, so that's the Color Brewer palette. So this gets into the issue of color quantity. So the data itself doesn't have as much quantity of the colors that she has in her map. So the data's doing that. We're not doing that. But it might be that you don't like the color quantity that comes out of that data, so you choose another map, Color Brewer, or you make your own colors or something like that. But that's what's going on, is the quantity of color there isn't as much yellow, for example, up in here, and there's probably a little more blue and red-orange up in here than there is in her maps. So that's what I'm trying to say, is what you might see in Color Brewer might be different when you put your data and you run it through the map, and that's going to be based on quantity, proportion.
So what's bad about this one?
I didn't say there was anything bad about it. I said it looks different. I'm not saying there was anything bad. What I'm trying to say is if you look at this and you say, okay, that's what my visualization is going to be, don't be surprised if it comes up looking a little different. Actually, this is a great visualization.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, we made, but I'm trying to tell you that just because you look at Color Brewer and your mind visualizes it, when you run your data into it, your results may be.
Because you have very few reds,
Right.
and they're the 20% red, and you've got 5% red or something.
Right. So it's a lot of, and Albers talks about that in his book. It's color quantity is a big deal. And in data, you can't control that if you're doing your color quantity.
If you start adding opacity to those palettes and start overlaying them on maps or each other, do you find that the palettes still hold true to being pleasing for a visualization?
Yeah, in Color Brewer you can overlay, she's got a topographic map, you can overlay on top of it the colors if you want to try it for source. And, you know, Esri and Cynthia Brewer like this, they publish her book. So if you're doing Esri products, you're probably going to get good colors from Brewer. But yes, there's lots of transparencies where things don't work out. There's also situations where it doesn't work out at all. I don't know exactly what you're trying to ask me. Do I find that it's be difficult? Yeah, it's difficult. You have to change it. Now, what I do is, if I'm doing a transparency and I have a terrain under it, I tend to go with colors that are more in the tense white, have a lot of white in them, because it won't conflict that much with the layered surface. That's my trick to trying to do. Right, somebody else, please?
What is your use of the 3D in this?
Pardon me?
The 3 dimensions in this image with the thickness, and then the counties seem to have different altitudes.
Right, that's perfect, you're right.
Why? Why do that?
Oh, it looked good. Now, this particular visualization, this is a public policy visualization. So we're looking to it broadband in the state of North Carolina. And it had an animation to it so that you could see the data. This is a still frame. The data went up and down. You probably don't know it yourself where the data goes up and down. So this is just one frame. See, there's various frames from the visualization. So we did it. So we could have done it. It's been hard to do that in 2D actually.
Is down bad?
No, actually, if you look at, this is the best one for showing the color map, right? But if you look at it, as the visualization goes out, everybody's got broadband as time goes on, so that it turns out to be almost all blue. It turns out to be over time, this particular visualization becomes a flat speed. Because if all the 100 counties have broadband, you don't have any data. You understand? So no, this is good. To become all blue is a good thing. So, yes, sir.
You mentioned.
I got you.
You mentioned earlier 2 different models. One is HSL and HSV. I never get what's the difference between these two.
Okay, HSV is one code, a single code. So the colors go from either saturated all the way to a black. That here. This one, it's just a different mathematical construct. This one's a double count. So they're playing more with pastels up top here. So your strongest heat value is at the center. So it just means your numbers and your calculations are going to be different. It's a mathematical, numerical thing. It's not a color thing that's different. It's just a language for expressing the color.
Okay.
And the reason I covered that in this class is because workshop, HSL, if you know the HSL values, you can write that directly into your web page. And you can call a color that you might not be able to find if you just use straight hex values. In other words, you're going to have a richer color palette to choose from on your website.
Okay.
Because some websites become very monotonous. I mean, you can tell that they're using a very limited color selection. And the way to get the largest color selection is to know the HSL value. Companies like Pantone or various manufacturers will know the HSL value. And if you enter that into your web page, you'll have a much richer color selection.
Thank you.
One of the most common thing in designing web pages is the color, the variance of the colors in that group.
Thanks.
I got him, he's had it up here, then I can
Get him.
You were talking about colors for streaming video, Apple doing one thing and others doing another thing, and you kind of had the triangles almost overlaying. Is that something where, like, the average layperson who's not a color geek is going to really be able to tell the difference, whether Apple goes with one thing or another?
Well, photographers have assured us that we're gonna be able to know the difference. People trying to get at the same kind of angle. Now, what has happened is most people are following Apple. Most people use the DC standard for streaming. And this is the content they're gonna deliver on their website. This is like Apple TV, the content that you're gonna be able to get now. You can get HBO, their content. Most of them are going with that standard. So what I'm trying to say to you is you can't create content. Content developers, the person at Pixar that's responsible, leading the team of people making Coco, I promise you that they don't have a DCP, they don't have a DCP creator, the content. So they're creating it in Adobe RGB color space, in all likelihood. Then they're converting it over. And they're mentally seeing the loss between when they convert over from one to another. So what that's going to mean is there's certain types of blues and greens that over time people won't use because they know it's lost when they go into the TV. So that's what we will notice. We'll notice like that the particular content doesn't have those particular types of colors.
Doesn't look quite as rich or full.
In like the greens and the blues.
Okay.
Because our community is already, let's find that diagram. So our community has already told them. And see, the problem is, you know, things like Apple TV and all these things, streaming is not quite that popular because people still are able to see the regular digital Coco movie, which is that they're not doing that. I'm lost at somebody.
So we should boycott Apple?
It's not, you know, this is just a decision. It's not a big deal. I mean, okay, DCEP3 is the standard, and it's kind of telling you about it. I don't think you're going to be able to boycott them, but they just made it. I mean, they made it like years ago. So, okay, here, here's the guy. This is the guy that noticed it. He wrote this article a really long time ago. He wrote it in 2015. So he caught it in 2015. And Apple, how many phones has Apple introduced since 2015? A lot of phones every single year. So here he shows it. I hope I don't trip. So you see, he's showing up here. Hey, you're not going to get these blues. You're not going to get these greens with that standard. You see what I'm saying? So he's saying, okay, you're going to create the content. I don't care where you're at. You're in New Zealand. You're Wedded Digital or something. You're making the Game of Thrones. You know that you're not going to, when that thing goes into the DCI-P3 standards, that it's not going to pick up that blue and green. So you might not make your dragon blue and green. You might change the color, you know, make the colors that where it's going to look good when you put it on streaming media.
Does that only affect streaming, or does it also affect like Blu-ray or DVD?
No, it's not the Blu-ray standard. That has nothing. Blu-ray has nothing to do with it. This is the streaming media standard.
Purely streaming. Okay.
Yeah, and so, but what people will do is because they're trying to sell their product, they're going to strategize for the color range that they can do. And so what I'm saying to you is nobody's creating in DCI P3 directly. They're creating in tools that are really Adobe RGB and converting over DCI P3. So over time, they'll just not use those colors that don't work so good.
Okay.
So over time, we'll notice it. We'll notice if these blues right along in here, if that color doesn't appear anymore. Because you're not going to see it. I mean, it's not going to be optimized for it anyway. So that's what's going to happen. So, in other words, you're here doing your visualization for your here's what could happen to you. You're doing this visualization for your transportation community, and you're not thinking about streaming. You're thinking about, you happen to put a color palette in this, and somebody puts it into that skin and it looks awful. That's what will happen. You know? I mean, those are risks, what will happen to people. But it's no different than looking on your monitor and then trying to print it out on a screen, right? You learn it. Any more questions? I'm over. Who should get the books? I gotta make the decision.
The one happy to write those.
Oh, you're gonna claim, he's gonna claim like, I gotta get the book, right? What do you think? You think I should give it to him because he helped write it? I tell you what I'm gonna do. There's a guy way back there. He gets a book. You know why? Because he watched me set it up.
Thank you.
He watched me set the kidney. He watched me set the whole class up.
really
He's been
appreciate
here since like 7:45.
But the signature will count, cost me?
All right, who should get this other book? Who do you think asked what a better question?
I like the feelings and emotions question personally.
Oh, you think the feelings and emotions?
I liked it, you know.
How's what it? What does everybody think? I think it's good.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna give it to him.
Thank you.
I would have bought this. It sounds so good. Thank you all for coming. Thank you.